A week before the tour, El País began to publish the documents found in the records that had been kept secret until then. The next morning, the Spanish riders boycotted the national championships, so that it is not held for the first time in its history. Only 2 riders, Pedro Perillo and Paco Mancebo, take the first lap. They take the start, they do 1 lap around the circuit, and they go home. The tour, alarmed by the possibility that some of the riders involved might tarnish their event, requires an official report to the from the President of the Spanish Sports Commission, Jaime Lisovetsky, to be delivered to the team so that they can proceed to undertake an internal purge at a meeting held in Strasbourg. Mancebo, like Basso, Ulrich, Sevilla and all the Liberty riders must go home before the start. Shortly after, Agré 2, the French team, Agré 2 of Provence, I think, the team in which he thought he would eventually become rich, that team had put him on, signed him on a contract of €1 million a year, dismissed him, although they paid his contract out. On the list is Alan Davis. Not on the list is Alejandro Valverde. Like Mancebo, dozens of riders are suddenly left in limbo. They cannot race because it's widely known they have been doped with Fuentes, but they cannot be punished because the judge won't release to the federations sufficient evidence to build the case. It is precisely then, in August 2006, when everything goes bad, all get stranded in offices, in the refusal of the cyclists to cooperate, in the lack of political will to take advantage of the things learned in Puerto, to organise an investigation committee to see the extent of doping in all sports, and to propose an acceptable way out to all the riders, to lay down the law and to start from scratch in 2007. Instead, the cycling world organises its own Sonderkommando. The Sonderkommando were the Jews who led the other Jews to the gas chambers. The teams will fight each other for cheaper riders, all betray their neighbours. They will all think about how to survive. Some accuse others of blacklisting, organising witch hunts. The UCI and WADA is drowned in paper. They leave everything in the hands of their lawyers. As snipers, Italian and German anti-doping authorities are more concerned, or only concerned, to try to punish the most famous names. They don't investigate the branches of Fuentes' network in their own countries, the doctors who work with him, that helped to establish the safe blood banks during the Giro and the Tour. Enrique collaborates with Italy and Germany. He helps them find the legal and policy loopholes that would allow them to take samples of blood bags and make Basso confess. And Ulrich will be punished, and many others. In France, where there was also ramifications, nobody does anything. In 2007, Mancebo rides for Relax, a second division team that wants to give him an opportunity, and wants to give an opportunity to all those lost in limbo, including Sevilla, including Santi Perez, Angel Vicioso. He seeks agreement with the Spanish Sports Department. He wants official medical monitoring. He wants to prove that he can start again from scratch. The experiment fails and sinks when the Vuelta refuses to let the suspects take part. The following year, Mancebo goes to Portugal, basically a refugee. Instead of the €1 million he was going to earn that year, he earns €900 a month. Nobody sanctions him, but it's not an important team with his quality. Who wants to run the risk of hiring him? He's on the blacklist. Alejandro Valverde is also on the blacklist, harassed and accused by all sides, only kept afloat by the strength of his team Case Stepan. His name is a symbol of Operacion Puerto. Even when Fuentes was under arrest at the police station, he asked the policeman whether they could go after Valverde, one of his clients who he assured was involved. However, although a list of blood stocks in 2004 included the notes Valve Pity, Enrique could not find sufficient evidence, nor phone taps, diaries, doping calendars, etc. to add his name to the list. Manolo Sáez and his lawyer, Carlos Bueran, called the journalist, "Why don't you talk about Valverde?" Remember, Manolo Sáez, the father of the Pro Tour, the father of Mr. McQuaid's presidency, is one of the suspects in this, or one of the accused who's facing trial in this case. And he's ringing up the journalist saying, why don't you talk about Valverde? Mention Valverde, don't be afraid. And they support the invitation with an envelope of clippings from a newspaper article in which Valverde is seen playing with his puppy called Pity. And everyone knows that Basso's dog is called Barrigo, and that all the nicknames used by Fuentes are the athlete's pet names, except for Mancebo, who is Goku from Dragon Ball. And they wonder why Valverde keeps riding and winning as if nothing has happened. Mancebo means nothing, and Valverde is a symbol. Both suffer as they're hunted. Operacion Puerto gets reduced to a manhunt. Valverde is finished with a worldwide ban employed by the survivors who have managed to change just enough so that business keeps the same. Even though Coney had skipped all legal procedures, all the normal legal precautions, all normal judicial standards in order to do it, Mancebo's manhunt, who is now 34, continues, and it will go on until he quits. In 2009, thanks to his friend Sevilla, who is exiled in Colombia, where he finds love and a team in which he continues with his bad gear and has just tested positive, Mancebo experiences the madness of the Yankee team rock racing. He wins a stage at the Tour of California and is leader until Leipheimer's team, Radio Shack, pull together to finish him off, and then he suffers a fall on the Queen stage. In 2010, the American team disappears. Mancebo is unemployed. He takes part in mountain bike races, keeps on training, finds a Greek sponsor for a team in Murcia, Spain. He shines in the Tour of Mexico and the Tour of Utah. He even won the Tour of Guadalupe. As his future seems secured with a big sponsor, he asks his former director, Eusebio Unzué, to hire him to return to the Pro Tour after 5 years since Puerto broke. Unzué refused. He has received some information from the Spanish Federation. When the trial for the crimes against public health starts against Fuentes, Batres, Saiz and others, we will ask the judge for the bags of blood, Unzué is told by the Spanish Federation. Then we will begin with the sanctions, including Mancebo, so don't hire him. Mancebo thinks that this is an excuse made up by somebody, but in reality, nobody wants to, or nobody can, I would say, contract him. Cycling remains the same, but without Mancebo, who in September, instead of racing in La Vuelta, races in the Tour of Bulgaria, where he finishes third, and where he finds out there are still UCI races without doping controls. A few months after Puerto, Enrique meets José Luis Marino Batres, one of Fuentes' cohort, the man who owned the testing laboratory and the man who organised the logistics of the Puerto transfusions. After greeting him, Batres tells Lieutenant Enrique, "The one I pity most is Mancebo. Do you know that he naturally has such a high hematocrit level at 49 that we could not give him anything because it would have been detected so easily. We only gave him a placebo and little else. We've been cheating him for years." And that is the end of Carlos's paper. Can we go to the slogan?